Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the week, Parshat Chukat. Before we go into the Torah's expression and explaining the passing of Aharon, this week's Parsha, we want to just give a little intro background from what Rabbi Nachman says in Likutey Moharan, lesson 24. He says there that the power of Simcha, the power of doing a mitzvah, a mitzvot besimcha, is so powerful that it can literally shake up the whole world to come back to Hashem. And when shaking up and arousing everyone to come back to Hashem, this activates bracha, blessing, and the main blessing being what's called the birkat hasechel, the blessing of the intellect. If you have blessing activated, you can choose a Ferrari, a nice house, and this and that, or you can choose like King Solomon did, to choose knowledge of Hashem, because once you have knowledge of Hashem, everything else is included. All the wealth and riches, because everything is in the Torah. When you have perception and knowledge, automatically anything underneath that is included. B'ezrat Hashem. So the greatest blessing is the blessing of sechel. However, when this comes down, a person must not resort to using it. In other words, he shouldn't just solely use the intellect that he's been gifted with and blessed with. Rather, he must couple it, he must join it with emunah. Meaning, as much as he's knowledgeable, but when it comes to actually serving Hashem, the person pushes all of his intellectual gymnastics and knowledge on the side and serves Hashem out of complete faith. Obviously, the faith is built due to the knowledge, but the goal has to be, and a person has to remember this always, the goal is to join the sechel, the intellect that you're gifted with emunah, faith. And this combo of knowledge and emunah activates this high, lofty level, which in the Kabbalah is called the keter, the crown. The crown being the boundary, like a crown on the king's head is like a boundary separating the people from the king. His head, his brain is on the other side of the crown, whereas the actual servants and the whole country that he's a king over on the other side. So too, the crown separates us from Hashem. Hashem, blessed be His infinite light. However, when a person is able to join the blessing of intellect that he's gotten to through joy with emunah, he's able now to connect to this keter, and the keter now becomes a filter to shine into this person the highest level possible, called the infinite light. And the infinite light, on a practical level, means to have clarity in every area of life. Isn't that an amazing gift? Wouldn't it be amazing that you would have clarity in every area? No frustrations, no confusions, no feeling like lost and alone, but having a gift of awareness of what's happening. That's amazing. That's light. That's the infinite light. But it comes about through this keter, which comes about when a Jew, by doing mitzvot b'simcha, and Hashem, due to his simcha, activates momentum in the world, giving him a bracha, a blessing, so that the blessing brings down, when it's coupled with emunah, allows him to come down to activate the keter b'ezrat Hashem. And Rabbi Nachman teaches, though, that the way the keter manifests itself in shining a light into a person is that he has to be bounced backwards. He goes forward, connecting to the keter, but then he's pushed back. In the Kabbalah, this is called mate velo mate, reaching and not reaching. Because the reality is, you can't connect to Hashem's light. If you connect to Hashem's light, you'll disappear, you'll melt. It's two opposites. You're finite, and this light is infinite. It's two opposites. So the only way for a person to gain a glimpse of this experience of clarity coming in through light has to be an in and out format. You're in and out. I know this is all very deep, but it comes down to, on a very practical level, of having clarity in the most frustrating parts of life, when you don't know what to do, you don't know what to think, you don't know who to speak to, you don't know anything. So what's needed is not just knowledge, but light, clarity. You can have knowledge of 5,000 options, but what's the right thing to do? That's light. That's the shining of the infinite light into my life, shining me clarity and help me to make the right decisions in life. So now, Rabbi Nachman teaches, and Rav Nosson elaborates this in the Likutey Moharan, that this was the quality of Aharon. Aharon being the first high priest, Kohen Gadol, and being the seat of bracha. We have, at least in Eretz Yisrael and by Sephardic minyanim all over the world, but every shul in the world, we or do or mention every morning Birkat Kohanim. In the Shmoneh Esrei, there's the time when the Kohanim go up and do duchaning, right? The blessings are in the hands of the Kohanim, thanks to Aharon. Aharon merited that him and his descendants are Kohanim. And the Torah says, why did Aharon merit to become the first priest and not Moshe Rabbeinu? Because like the Pasuk says, when Moshe in Parshat Shmot refused to go back to Egypt to take the Jews out, refused to be the messenger, because he said, take my brother Aharon, he's older than me, he's already a prophet, and it's not proper. He's going to be jealous, I'm younger than him, and it's like stepping on his feet. He's already a prophet, I'm going to come, his younger brother, to take the Jews out of Egypt. So Hashem said to Moshe, it's not like you think. V'ra'acha v'samach belibo. Aharon, I'll tell him to come out to the desert to greet you and Sipporah or whatever, and he'll see you, and he'll be happy in his heart. And Rashi says later on that the reason why Aharon merited the garments of the Kohen Gadol, especially the Choshen, which is placed on the chest, is because of the simcha that he had in his heart. So he was zochet to the vestments of the Kohen Gadol. The main one, the one that's more sticking out, being the breastplate with the 12 stones. Okay? So because of Aharon's simcha, that he wasn't jealous of his brother, he was happy. Hashem told him, you're going to see the greatness of Aharon. That even though he's older than you, even though he's already a prophet, he won't envy you. That is amazing. That's an amazing level. That he'll have such joy knowing that you're the right person, and it's not beneath my dignity that you were chosen. You're my younger brother. I'm already a prophet in Egypt before you, Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm happy for you. You're fitting for the job. You're the one chosen for it because you can do it. I'm happy. I'm not going to now be jealous. That's an amazing virtue. And the non-jealousy, which is peace, is connected to joy. And that's this week's Parsha, where Rashi says that when Aharon passed away, everybody mourned him. Men, women. Rashi says why? Because he was able to make shalom between people. Between ish lechavero, ben adam lechavero, or ben ish leishto. You can see Rashi says that Aharon was someone who was able to make peace. Why? Because Aharon was a happy person. Because he was happy, he was able to get to people. He was able to talk to them, to get to them, to convince them not to have a grudge and have a fight with if it's a husband or a wife or it's a business partner or another Jew, to just get along. He was able to get them to bypass their anger and their jealousy, whatever. Okay? So this was the greatness of Aharon, that his simcha made him a beacon of peace. And because of all this, he was chosen to be a Kohen. And the main job of the Kohanim, this is besides offering the sacrifices in the Beit HaMikdash and in the Mishkan, they are in charge of Birkat Kohanim, blessing the nation, which is every day. You know, the Zohar speaks super duper high, and the Arizal also, super duper high, what happens in Birkat Kohanim. If you knew what was happening in Birkat Kohanim, you'd faint. The whole world's blessings are coming down through the hands of the Kohanim when they're blessing Am Yisrael. Can you believe that? And in those minyanim where they don't do it, in the diaspora, by the Chazan just saying the Birkat Kohanim also, it activates even an essence connected to that. But whether the Psukim, whether actual Birkat Kohanim, the bracha comes down to the world through this Birkat Kohanim. If you notice, the first thing we say in the morning, right after Birkat Torah, the blessings of the Torah is what? The blessings of the Kohanim. Yivach Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yerashem panav elecha v'choneka. We're saying the blessings of the Kohanim. Because all the blessings in the world are channeled to the Birkat Kohanim. So Aharon is the seed of bracha. And this bracha is due to his simcha that he had in his brother being chosen. And that brushing off, showing that in general, Aharon HaKohen was a happy person. He was a good and happy person. People liked him. He attracted good vibes, and everybody was happy to speak to him, and he interceded when needed to make peace, okay? So he was in charge of the bracha. So because of that, Rashi points out that when let's take a look inside. Even we see the verse itself, that in order to convince Aharon to go into the mountain Horahar to die, to pass away, so Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu in verse 25, chapter 20, Parshat Chukat, Kach et Aharon, you Moshe take Aharon. What do you mean take Aharon? So Rashi points out, Bidvarim shel nichumim, pull him in to enter the cave to pass away with words of consolation. Emor lo, tell Aharon your brother, Ashrecha, fortunate are you, Aharon, shetir'eh kitrecha natun lebincha, ma she'en ani zakai lekach. Fortunate are you that you will see your crown. It's called Keter Kehuna. That's how Pirkei Avot called it. The Keter of the Kehuna, the crown of the Kehuna, okay? You'll see that it'll be given to your son, something which I myself will not merit to. So it's funny. Rashi is quoting the Midrash that the status of Aharon is called a Keter. It's a crown. Even though it's 8 vestments, but it's called the crown. We can assume because of the tzitz, which is not really a crown. The tzitz was on the foreplate, on his forehead, right? And he had the special hat of the Kohen Gadol, fine, the mikbat. But the crown, meaning his position. In our context, because Aharon was the initiator of the simcha, leading to the initiation of the Kohanim being the source of blessings, and the bracha leading to the keter. So this is where Rashi is pointing out, you're going to be zoche to hand over this keter to Elazar, who's going to be the next Kohen Gadol. Okay? We're not finished yet. So now Rabbi Nachman said, if you remember in the introduction we just gave, that in order to experience the keter has to be what's called mateh velo mateh, which means reaching and not reaching. So the Midrash, quoted by the Siftei Kohen on the Torah, unbelievable. He says that the Midrash says there were major miracles involved in the undressing of Aharon and the dressing of Elazar. To explain, it says that the next verse, it says that Kachet Aharon, verse 28, take Aharon and Elazar his son, Ve'alotam Horahar, take them up to the mountain Horahar, Ve'havshet et Aharon, and then undress Aharon, and then it says again, et begadav, there's a redundancy here, and undress Aharon, et begadav, his clothing, Vilbashtam et Elazar beno, and dress the clothing onto Elazar his son, and then once that's done, Aharon yasef umet sham, and then Aharon will be gathered in, his soul will be gathered in, and he will die there. So the Midrash says, from the verse could have just said, V'havshet begadav me'al Aharon. It could be just like said in a shorter version, but the verse decided to go lengthy and undress Aharon, his clothing. It's redundancy. So the Midrash points out that there were miracles involved there. What was the miracles? That how do you undress? You take first the outer clothing off, and then later on the close clothing, like the gachkes, the underwear, the shirt. Okay, that's last. And here, so Aharon was taking off the outer vestments, and as he was taking them off, that's how it's deducted from the verse, from the redundancy, from the length of the verse, that as he was taking them off, he was dressing Elazar. How could you do that? How could you dress Elazar, the outer garments, before their inner garments? First, you put on the long underwear of the Kohen Gadol and the undershirt, and then the me'il and the tashbetz, and then the ephod and the meal of the ephod. You start from inside out. The Midrash says it was a miracle. Aharon took off his garment, as it's like a requirement. They learned it from the deduction of the length of the verse. Aharon took off his outer me'il of the ephod and dressed it onto Elazar. There's nothing underneath, okay? And then the second undergarment, how do you get it under the avnet and the ephod? So that shows you there were nisei nisim. The Midrash says there were miracles of miracles on how they got the undergarments onto Elazar after he had the outer garments on first. You can't stuff it in and put it in. It's already on. So there were big miracles involved in this, okay? And the Torah's requirement is that's how it has to be done. Aharon's first outside garment, that has to go on first, okay? So the Siftei Kohen points out that this is learned out by the additional aleph in this verse. This verse, okay, It's verse 28 when that actually happened. It says, Vayavshet Moshe et Aharon et begadav vayalbesh otam et Elazar beno vayamot Aharon sham berosh hahar. So what actually happened, the first was the command. Verse 26 was the command, and verse 20 is actually happening. So, and Moshe undressed et Aharon et begadav. Again, the length, they've done the extra words. Aharon, his clothing, and dressed him onto Elazar. As he's taking them off, they're going on to Elazar. So the Siftei Kohen points out, because of the length, the additional words, you have your 6 aleph in total. Vayavshet Moshe et aleph number 1, Aharon aleph number 2, et aleph number 3, begadav vayalbesh otam aleph number 4, et again aleph number 5, and Elazar number 6. So he says these 6 corresponding to the 6 garments that were miraculously put on in the opposite reverse format, because he said the tzitz and the hat of the Kohen Gadol of Aharon HaKohen, that could stay on and be put on last, no problem. It's inner garments and outer garments which are on the body. So there in total, the Kohen Gadol had 8 garments. Of them, 6 had the miracle. So he says the Siftei Kohen that the 6 garments having a miracle are hinted into these 6 alephs. Why the letter aleph? Because aleph backwards is pele. Pele is a term for miracles. Pele is also a term, Rabbi Nachman explains and the Kabbalah teaches, a pele is a wonder, is the level of the keter also. Okay? So what's going on here? We said that in order to experience the light of the keter, the infinite light, it has to be in a mateh vela mateh, a forward momentum and backwards. So here, by the way Aharon was taking off his vestments and then being them placed on Elazar, you had also a mateh vela mateh, a forward and backward momentum. Okay? The forward momentum, Aharon is getting ready to leave this world, so he can't be buried with the vestments of the Kohen Gadol. They're holy. They have to be used for the service. They're exclusive of the service of the Beit HaMikdash and the Mishkan. So he had to take them off. So he's mateh. He's now getting ready, Aharon, to become merged with the infinite light. He's about to pass on. And now his son is ready to have taken his place. So for Aharon now, his garments coming off is mateh, going in one direction, the right direction forward. He's taking them off to get ready for his next level. And for his son, though, Elazar, it's lo mateh, not reaching. Everything's backwards. You're putting on the vestments in backward format. Why? And yet, it's irrational. It's against logic. And yes, like the Midrash says, nisei nisim, outstanding miracles in the vestments being placed on Elazar, and they were done backwards. Why? Why not just Aharon take off all the vestments and then Elazar start from the inner garments and then work out? No, because we have to teach that the way to perceive the keter kehuna, to reach the crown of the kehuna, has to also have that backward momentum, which doesn't make sense, and yet it works out in a miracle. In other words, a person perceiving infinite light happens when there's a pushback. When it's going backwards, that's when he specifically perceives this big light. That's the keter. In this case of the Kohanim, the keter kehuna. So this is why there was a requirement for Elazar to put on the vestments backwards, and it worked against logic, supernatural, being a pele, 6 of the 8 vestments at least, like the Siftei Kohen points out on the 6 alephs, and this is how Elazar got passed on the keter kehuna. And this is a moral lesson for all of us, that with simcha we come to bracha, with bracha we choose the bracha of knowing Hashem, coupled with emunah, and this allows a person to perceive the keter, and the way the keter works is it pushes a person backwards. It's the forward and then going back. And that's the way to make it in life and to perceive things that no one else can. Shabbat Shalom, and B'ezrat Hashem, have an amazing